Some movies make you cry, and then it passes. These ones don't pass, they stay with you. Not as memories, but as a feeling you can't quite shake. A hollowness. These are 7 films that will leave you staring at nothing long after the screen goes dark. Let's start.
Конечно, нет.
Конечно, дерьмо.
Но это единственное, что у тебя есть. Это жизнь единственное, что у тебя есть.
Но эта жизнь мне не нужна.
Lilya Forever, 2002. Lucas Moody's son. Lilya is a 16-year-old girl living in the ruins of a post-Soviet housing block. Her mother is leaving for America and not taking her. That's where the film begins, and from that moment, it never stops falling. The darkness here has a very specific architecture. Moodyson doesn't deliver one devastating blow. He works slowly, methodically. A cruel aunt, a false accusation, a reputation destroyed overnight. Each step feels small, almost mundane. And that's precisely the point. Lilya doesn't fall into tragedy. She's quietly pushed. By poverty, by indifference, by a world that simply doesn't see her. The camera never lets you look away. Shot on 16 millimeters with a raw, handheld intimacy, it stays close to Lilya's face, almost uncomfortably close. You're not watching her suffer. You're inside it with her. And then there's Volodya, her only friend, an 11-year-old boy, just as abandoned, just as invisible. Their friendship is the only warmth in the film. Moodyson knows exactly what he's doing with that warmth. When it ends, you feel something quieter than grief, something you can't quite name. Come and See, 1985. Ilym Klimov. Flyora is a teenage Belarusian boy who wants to join the resistance against the Nazi occupation. He digs up a rifle from the sand and volunteers. He is excited. He thinks war is an adventure. The film is the story of what happens to his face. Klimov shoots everything through Flyora's eyes, not as a stylistic choice, but as a trap you can't observe from a safe distance. You're inside the boy's head as he watches his village burn, as he walks through the aftermath of a massacre, as the world around him becomes something no language was designed to describe. The Steadicam never leaves him. Extreme close-ups force you to read every micro-expression on his face. The exact moment innocence leaves and something else takes its place. The lead actor, Alexei Kravchenko, had no acting experience. Klimov used hypnosis to prepare him for certain scenes, not so he could perform them, but so he might not fully remember them afterward. After finishing the film, Klimov never directed again. He said, "I lost interest in making films. Everything that was possible, I felt I had already done." That feeling, that there is nothing left, is exactly what the film passes on to you.
All this child needs is some food.
She needs food.
How can I help you?
Well,
Where am I supposed to get food?
Grave of the Fireflies, 1988. Iso Takahata. The film opens with its ending. A teenage boy dying alone in a train station. A janitor finds a candy tin beside his body and tosses it into a field. From that tin, 2 children's ghosts emerge, and the story begins. Takahata tells you from the first frame that they don't survive. There is no suspense, no hope to hold on to, just the slow, unbearable process of watching 2 orphaned siblings, a 14-year-old brother and his 4-year-old sister, try to exist in the ruins of post-war Japan. There are no bombs in this film, no battles, no heroes. Takahata made a deliberate choice to show war only through what it leaves behind: hunger, indifference, the quiet collapse of a child's body. The violence here is invisible. And that invisibility is precisely what makes it so unbearable. The film has no villain either. The aunt who turns them away is not a monster. She's exhausted and desperate herself. The doctor who sends them home without medicine isn't cruel. He's overwhelmed. Nobody is evil. Everyone just looks away. And that, Takahata seems to be saying, is how two children starve to death in the middle of a functioning society. The novel was written by Akiyuki Nosaka as an act of personal penance. His own younger sister died of malnutrition during the war. He survived. The guilt never left him. You feel that weight in every frame. Not the weight of war, the weight of having been there and done nothing.
Arrête de m'observer.
Je t'observe pas.
Bien sûr que si. Je ne suis pas encore idiote à ce point.
Amour, 2012. Michael Haneke. Georges and Anne are in their 80s, retired music teachers. They live in a Paris apartment surrounded by books, records, and decades of shared life. The film opens with police breaking down their door, drawn by a smell. What they find is Anne's body, laid out on the bed, surrounded by flowers. Then the film goes back and shows you how they got there. Haneke shoots everything in long, static takes, no music, no cutaways, no relief. The camera simply stays in the room and watches, with the same patience and the same mercilessness as time itself. As Anne's condition deteriorates after a stroke, the apartment that was once their entire world becomes a kind of sealed chamber. The film never leaves it. The title is Amour, love. And Haneke means it, but not the way we usually use the word. This is love as endurance. Love as watching someone disappear, piece by piece, and staying anyway. Love as the most exhausting thing a human being can do. Haneke based the film on a real experience. His own aunt, who had raised him, spent her final years severely ill and alone in her apartment. At one point, she asked him to euthanize her. He couldn't. She eventually took her own life. I wanted to investigate this feeling, he said, of being able to do nothing about it. That feeling of loving someone completely and being completely powerless is what the film leaves inside you, long after the screen goes dark.
Jeanne, 1 plus 1, ça peut-tu faire 1?
Incendies, 2010. Denis Villeneuve. A woman dies in Montreal. She leaves behind 2 sealed letters, one for a father her children believed was dead, one for a brother they never knew existed. Her will states she cannot be buried until both letters are delivered. And so the twins begin to retrace their mother's life. Incendies is structured like a detective story. 2 timelines moving toward each other, past and present, each new discovery unlocking another door. Villeneuve builds it with mathematical precision. The film even name-checks the Collat's conjecture early on, a mathematical problem where any sequence of numbers, no matter how chaotic, eventually collapses back to 1. That is exactly what this film does. Every thread, every atrocity, every impossible coincidence, they all collapse back to a single, unbearable point. What makes the ending so devastating is not the revelation itself. It's the realization of what it cost. The film has spent 2 hours showing you a woman who survived everything. War, prison, torture, rape, loss. And she survived it all, not by hardening, but by holding on to the one thing she believed in, that her children would find each other, and that the chain of hatred would finally break. The final letters are not dramatic. They are quiet. They are a mother speaking to her children for the last time, asking them to do the one thing she could not, to forgive. You don't feel empty after Incendies because the film is nihilistic. You feel empty because it isn't.
But he needs his mother, you know, alive no matter where.
Don't understand. He needs his eyes.
He needs his mother.
No!
Yes, alive. No!
Dancer in the Dark, 2000. Lars von Trier. Selma is a Czech immigrant living in Washington State in 1964. She works at a factory. She is going blind, slowly, irreversibly, and she is saving every cent she earns for one purpose, an operation that will prevent her young son from sharing her fate. Von Trier builds the film around a devastating contradiction. Selma loves musicals when the world becomes too much. When the machines are too loud, when the fear gets too heavy, she slips into a fantasy where everything becomes song and choreography and light. The musical numbers are her only escape, and Von Trier films them with genuine warmth and beauty. Then he takes that warmth and uses it as the sharpest possible weapon against you. This is the third film in Von Trier's Golden Heart trilogy, a series about women of pure, selfless goodness who are systematically destroyed by the world around them. Selma is perhaps the most extreme example. Her goodness is total. Her sacrifice is total. And the film is absolutely pitiless in return. Björk, in what she described as her first and last starring role, doesn't act so much as exist. Von Trier and others described her performance not as acting, but as feeling. The process was so emotionally devastating that she said she never wanted to act again. There is no catharsis here, no redemption, no comfort. When it ends, the screen goes dark, and you are left with nothing, which is exactly what the film intended to give you.
بدي اشتكي على اهلي.
ليه بتشكى على أهلك؟
هم خلفوني.
Capernaum 2018. Nadine Labaki. A 12-year-old boy stands in a courtroom and sues his parents. Not for abuse, not for neglect exactly. He sues them for the act of bringing him into the world. His name is Zain. He lives in the slums of Beirut. He has no birth certificate, no papers, no identity that any system recognizes. And somewhere in the chaos of his short life, he arrived at a conclusion that no child should ever have to reach, that his existence itself is the injustice. Labaki spent years in Beirut's poorest neighborhoods before making this film, speaking to children, listening to them. She asked them, "Are you happy to be alive?" Most of them said no. "I didn't ask to be here." The boy who plays Zain is himself a Syrian refugee named Zain al-Rafia, discovered by Labaki on the streets of Beirut. He had never attended school. He could barely write his name. At the time of filming, his life was not entirely different from the character he was playing. Most of the film's cast were non-professional actors drawing from their own experiences. The camera at Zain's eye level, handheld, documentary close, the line between fiction and reality was almost impossible to find. This is a child who sees everything clearly. He understands the system that has failed him, the adults who look away, the machinery that grinds children into dust. And he refuses to accept it. His lawsuit is absurd. It is also the most rational response imaginable. When it ends, the emptiness you feel isn't grief for a character. It's something closer to recognition. 7 films, 7 different kinds of empty. These films don't ask you to feel sad. They ask you to sit with something you can't quite name, and that's the point. Thank you for watching.